Before we get into this episode, there's something that might be of interest that I wanted to tell you about. Scene and Heard, who run this podcast, have been asked by Scotland Food and Drink to undertake a strategic review of the Scotland Food and Drink Excellence Awards. Now, these Excellence Awards have been going for almost 20 years and are a huge mainstay of the food and drink sector. But it's time to ensure that they're still relevant. So if you have ever been involved in the Scotland Food and Drink Excellence Awards, or even if you've ever had an opinion about them, we would love for you, please, to complete our survey. So if you go to the OnFARM Twitter, which is at @on_farm UK, and click the link in the bio, there will be a tab in there that will take you to the survey, and it should only take you a very short while to complete, but we would be enormously grateful.
So, hello, it's Monty here for this episode of On Farm. My guest today will be very well known to you because I'll let her say hello, but it's none other than our very own Anna.
Gosh, that makes me sound vaguely like famous or something. I quite like being introduced like that. Thank you, Monty. Hi.
Hi. I suppose I better share with the listeners why we're doing this and why we're doing it in this way. So, On Farm, as you know, is brought to you by Scene&HerdPR and Marketing, and we hope you're enjoying it, and we think we've done fairly well at getting this off the ground. But what we've found with On Farm is that some of the episodes seem to actually throw up more questions than answers, and there's follow-up required. There's almost like revisits required. This is my interpretation of things. And so On Farm is, if you like, diversifying. We all talk about diversifying, and On Farm is diversifying. And Anna, you can tell us a little bit more about where we're going.
Yeah, I agree with you. I hope that people enjoy the podcast, and I hope that as well as telling stories, we're also sometimes, maybe not in every episode, but sometimes giving people the opportunity to learn something new. That's kind of the inspiration for our next project, which I'm going to tell you about today. And that new project is called the OnFARM Academy. And effectively, we know what OnFARM stands for: food, agriculture and rural matters. And the Academy is online training within exactly that sector. So we, as in Seen and Heard, and our team, and as well as external consultants who we use regularly, have built up over the years quite a lot of expertise in the fields of public relations, marketing, communications, and beyond. And so what we're doing is putting together the OnFARM Academy, which is online training delivered directly to your desk or to your phone, whereby you can learn in relatively short sessions. Each one is roughly about 40 minutes with a few exceptions, but learn in relatively short sessions more about various different topics. So, for example, Instagram, Facebook, how to take better photos with your iPhone, how to write a killer press release, that kind of thing. So that is effectively what we're talking about today.
It's almost like a revisit of some of the topics and issues that we've covered in the podcasts. One of them, for example, and we might even play a bit of it in here, that I was involved in was about farm succession.
Anybody listening to this soon after its broadcast will be listening on around about the 8th of November 2021, and we plan to formally launch the OnFARM Academy in January 2022, so not that long to wait. When we launch, we will have 5 or possibly 6 different training courses available immediately. But our plan is very much to build on this and add at least 2 new training courses and modules every month. So, by the end of a year, we will have added 24 new courses. And exactly as you said, Monty, we hope to cover a really broad range of topics. So, yeah, our internal expertise focuses on PR, marketing and communications, but we know so many people within the sector who've got so much other expertise, whether that be, as you said, legal expertise in regard to succession planning. It might be other expertise in regards to maybe sort of carbon auditing, or gosh, maybe an out of the box one is, sheepdog training, how to get the best out of your sheepdog, or a beginner's guide to starting a pup. The options, should I say, are vast. And yes, we've got to walk before we run. But our ambition is to keep growing this and provide online training in a whole broad range of topics, because at the end of the day, COVID has made people realise that travel to physical courses is really time consuming. Yes, some physical courses will always exist and should always exist, but sometimes it's just easier to learn something from the comfort of your own desk.
Yeah, I'm going to actually come in as a sort of daft laddie on this, because I suppose I was the daft laddie when you kind of had this idea, and that's maybe why I'm asking the questions and you're sharing your answers with our listeners here, Anna.
Yeah.
But basically, what do we mean by online training? What if for people who aren't familiar with the concept? I mean, I was one of them. You've been involved in this, or you've done some training yourself, etc. So just give us an insight into how this might actually look.
Yeah, I mean, actually, during lockdown, I became pretty keen, probably verging on obsessed with doing online training. I became a bit obsessed with, personal growth and development and adding to my skill set. So I've done quite a lot of online training, and I've seen the good and the bad and the ugly. But put simply, we are creating a platform. So you literally just click on a link. In that link, you will see the different training options available. So, for example, you might see a course called Instagram for Beginners. You click and you pay for that training, and we'll come on to the costs and things later on. And it's then immediately available on your laptop or your smartphone in a similar way to the way you'd listen to a podcast. So you watch that training, and it might be, in some cases, it'll be a video that you're watching of people moving around and having a chat and maybe doing a Q&A session. In some cases, it'll be a recorded PowerPoint. So it's more like attending a workshop, that you might go to, the village hall or the local hotel and watch somebody delivering a workshop with PowerPoint slides and some chit chat going along with it. So the formats are quite variable. But it's effectively each training is kept quite succinct, so about 40 minutes, easy to consume. A lot of them have a workbook attached to them, so you download the workbook, and that helps you to answer some of the questions or challenges that we might set out for you in the training. And then at the end of the day, you go away, and going back to Instagram for Beginners as an example, you go away with a much greater knowledge of the topic in question. So you're upskilling yourself, or if you're encouraging your staff members to attend, you're upskilling your team at the same time in any of the topics that you choose to undertake.
Yeah, it could be work related. It could be just general interest. Hopefully this academy is going to cover a range of topics relevant to a whole host of people.
Yes, I mean I would say it's most relevant to rural people or people within the food and drink sector who are running or working in small businesses. You might run a portfolio of 5 holiday cottages, and you might think to yourself, gosh, we really should be on Instagram here, but I know nothing about Instagram, and neither does anybody in my team. We need to go and do that course. Or you might be running a farm shop, or you might be running a sort of an allied trade business and realise that you or your team members have got a bit of a sort of skills deficit. And that's what this is about. It negates the need to travel. So, I for some reason, a lot of training always used to be in Perth. So I always used to be hitting the road and heading up to Perth to go to maybe a 1-hour workshop and thinking, crikey, that was useful. But do you know what? It's taken me nearly all day. Is it really that useful? But with this, you sit at home and you do it. So it takes as long as the course takes with no travel involved. I suppose the other 2 things to say, really, primarily anyhow, is this is tailored to rural businesses. So yes, you could probably...
What do you mean by that? What do you actually mean by tailored to rural businesses? Because slightly being almost devil's advocate here, but if I wanted to do a course on Instagram, jump on the internet and type in Instagram for beginners, and surely there's other courses out there that I could do.
Yes,
I don't even know what Instagram really, how it really works, by the way. So that could be a good idea. I know.
Well, actually, don't joke, because I'm going to sign you up for Instagram for Beginners. I'm obsessed with Instagram, so I don't think I need that course, but there's plenty of other things that I can learn. But yeah, that's a good example. So one of the courses that we've created already is all about actually how to use influencers. And influencers are people who have a strong presence on social media who can help you to build your brand by sharing the message. And so we've got, and gosh, this one's an hour long actually, but it's an hour long conversation with a girl who goes by the name on Instagram of The Dairy Daughter. She's a dairy farmer, but she also works in PR. So she really knows every single nitty gritty bit about farming. And so she's talking about Instagram influencers totally in the context of farming and rural business. You know, you probably could find a trainer in Edinburgh who could, you know, tell you the basics of Instagram, but they wouldn't know anything about farming or food production. So the point of our courses is that they are relevant to rural businesses. And we will be, one of the courses that's live actually is all about how to use storytelling within your business. And a lot of that content in that training is all about examples and showing examples of businesses that are doing a brilliant job. And all of those businesses are businesses that are relevant to other rural businesses. So I've used really pertinent examples that mean that the training is totally relevant and as bespoke as it can be under the circumstances. And I suppose that takes me into my final point actually, which is we have done a lot of training and we've been to people's offices and we've delivered truly bespoke training. But because of the time involved in that, for us to deliver that, you know, it comes at a significant cost. And not all businesses, particularly small businesses owners, can afford that cost. Whereas with the online training, you've got as bespoke as it can be under the circumstances, but at a fraction of the cost because we've created the course, we've put it online, and you can sit at home or in your office and download it. So that's, to me, that's a key benefit. We can still deliver bespoke training in person if that's what people need, but as I say, that's not affordable for everybody.
Hannah, if you think that's your final point, you're very much mistaken. Remember, I'm the host today. You're the guest. I get this. So we're talking, you know, we're using people with rural expertise. Therefore, they're speaking more the language of the rural audience, basically. That's where you're coming from on this.
Yes, I suppose you could liken it to the very existence of Seen and Heard, couldn't you? If somebody wanted a PR agent, a generic PR agency, they could take a train to Edinburgh and Glasgow and they could meet with hundreds of PR agencies, and many of which are excellent PR agencies, but they don't understand farming. And that's why Seen and Heard exists in the first place, because not only are we a PR agency, but we understand food and farming because we've both worked in the food and farming sectors. So we understand our clients and we understand farming jargon and we understand who their customers are. And I guess it's the same with the OnFARM Academy. It's the training is delivered by people who just get it.
What I'm looking forward to is getting some of the people that we know through Seen and Heard, some of the people that we know through the wider food, agricultural and rural matters movement, as it were, who are experts. They're real experts in a particular field or sector or skill set, but they're not coaches, they're not trainers. And from discussions that you and I have had previously, we're hoping that we can, you know, bring some of those people on board for the Academy, aren't we? That we can use their expertise and we can open that up in a way that they're comfortable with and in a way that appeals to the students, as it were. And people are going to be hearing from very genuine, experienced tutors, not just those who know how to teach.
Well, yes, exactly. And I suppose some of it isn't pure teaching. And a random example, because I happened to see him on television last night. So Ranulph Fiennes, right? You know, he does tours around the country and you can book a ticket for an evening with Ranulph Fiennes. Now, he's not going to teach you how to explore the world. He's going to talk you through his experiences and tell you how he did it and inspire you or even just interest you. But you'll come away and you've learned something. And some of our trainers are like that. And in fact, I would recommend that you go and you take part in Instagram influencers one with Amy, who's the dairy daughter. Yes, well, you and I do actually, yeah, but everybody, because by listening to that training, yes, she's giving you amazingly valuable hints and tips, but actually what she's doing is talking you through her experience and how she got to become such a strong influencer herself. And so just by listening to her journey, you are learning a huge amount that a lot of other people couldn't teach you. So that format for her, the training with her, is a little bit more like a kind of an evening with than a kind of sit down and we'll lecture you. None of this is about lecturing. Sometimes we have a PowerPoint presentation because there's key information that we want to get across, but actually more often than not, we want to be talking to really knowledgeable people who've got knowledge to impart. And sometimes the best way to digest that knowledge is by listening to a really great chat with them.
Have you any ideas from previous episodes? Have you any ideas of some training modules that may fall off the back of those?
I can give you a couple of examples off the top of my head. We had a brilliant episode of the podcast with Julia Latto, who runs the Rural Leadership Programme. She was providing loads of not just advice and information, but actually loads of really valuable examples for people. In that case, it was kind of specifically related to COVID, and she was providing amazing examples of people whose businesses had pivoted and survived and were thriving in COVID. And I think we can dive deeper into that. We've also done at least two, I think, podcast episodes with Gail Ellis, who runs Greenburn HR. Gail, at that point, told us everything that we ever needed to know about furlough and how small businesses could deal with furlough. And so we've already started chatting to her about how she can deliver content for the OnFARM Academy that provides really valuable people management and HR advice for businesses. And I suppose that's a key point here. You or I are not qualified to give people HR advice because we're PR people. But the point is that we know people specifically in the rural sector like Gail Ellis, who's extremely qualified to deliver HR advice. And that's why we're bringing her into the OnFARM Academy to impart that advice and share it with people. And, you know, she and Julia Latto are just two examples. So we've got plenty other people who can join in too. And in a way, you know, my mind, and I know yours as well, is just always wandering and always thinking about the future. And, you know, if you think about experts within the rural field, we hope that one day we might expand to bring in, you know, vets, lawyers who you've mentioned, accountants, climate change experts, animal nutrition experts. I mean, the list is kind of endless. And as I have said, we know we're going to walk before we run and focus first of all on what we know best. But I think the scope is pretty massive, actually.
Yeah, no, I get all of that, but I'll just go back to something you said earlier. I think the most exciting thing for me might be sheepdog training. That's maybe where I need to start. So hurry up and get that organised.
I've seen you working your dog, and I don't want to be rude, but I think there might be a little bit of room for improvement there.
Hey, that's the dog's fault.
Of course it is, yeah.
No, don't let her hear you say that. This podcast, the OnFARM podcast, I'm delighted we've been able to deliver it free of charge to the listeners. And I must say, we really need to thank the generosity of some of the sponsors and commissioning people that we've had on board for previous episodes. But you talk about charging for the training courses. What are we going to be looking at for that, Anna?
Well, I think there might be a little bit of variation, but not a huge amount. And I hope also an element of pleasant surprise, because we're not talking about a fortune here. Everything is obviously ex-VAT, but we're really talking about somewhere in the region of between £30 and £60, depending on the depth and the length of the training. So, which means that it really is affordable, and it's affordable time-wise as well. I think that's quite important to say. You know, we're not saying to people, you've got to turn up at a specific point in time every day for a fortnight to consume this training. What we're actually saying is, here's the training, you buy it, and then you can consume it in your own time, whenever you choose. And, you know, you pay once and it's yours to access effectively forevermore, or until we update it.
So just let me get this right then. So for, say, 50 quid, because you've not quite finalised that price, but for, say, £50, the listeners could access first aid training for mental health that would be invaluable for them, for their business. This is a skill that we're all going to need, or we all do need. But for £50, someone could sign up, do that course, and have that resource available at their fingertips. It's not just, you've done the course and see you later. They've got that information always there for when they may need it in the future. Is that,
yes,
that's right.
And that specific example, I've actually done that course. They allowed me to undertake the course to see if it would be relevant to us, and it's enormously valuable. I mean, talk about value for money. It's ridiculously valuable. They have an incredible amount of expertise in that field, and I think this is really important. One of the directors of the business grew up and spent her entire childhood on a farm. She was involved in young farmers. She's still involved in farming. So again, that's kind of bringing in the fact that in order for us to be willing to work with some of these external trainers, they've got to not only prove to us that they have got the expertise in that field, but also that they've got the expertise in other fields as well. Excuse the pun. Yeah, but they've got to have that agricultural or rural knowledge.
So what you're saying then is that, that course is available from those trainers at the moment, but when we put it up on the OnFARM Academy in the nearest future, it's going to be specifically rural.
Yes.
And specifically useful to rural businesses and rural people. And it's going to be credible in that because, we're not just saying we're going to go and get any mental health first aider to deliver the course. We're going to get mental health first aiders with farming knowledge and rural knowledge.
Exactly. So a format of the course is available now, and that's the one that I undertook. But it wasn't specifically rural. But they are completely recreating this course for us to make sure that this version is rural. So they will use their expertise. They'll also use other expertise that's already out there in the industry that they have access to. They obviously know all about the Young Farmers Are You OK campaign. They know all about the work of RSABI. So they're using all that expertise to create us a bespoke piece of mental health training that is specific to rural and that will resonate with rural people. And that's what we want every piece of our training to do. Yes, sometimes when it comes to writing a press release, for example, when we're creating the course about how to write the best press release, some of that is a little bit more generic. But actually what's critical in that case is that, we've got the contacts and the knowledge within the rural sector when it comes to making a press release seen and heard, excuse the pun. Every piece of content that we create for the Academy is created with a rural audience in mind.
Give us a little bit of a summary. What, when, who, where? What's available now? How much is it going to cost? Is there anything that our listeners need to do? And how would you conclude, please?
Right. Well, just quickly before I conclude, one important message. We've actually already had conversations with a number of different partners, as it were, in the sector. So the likes of NFU Scotland, SAOS, we've had conversations with them about working together. SAOS exists for collaboration, and we want to collaborate with other organisations. So if you are a rural organisation or membership body or whatever, and you'd like to work with us in any way, either you think you've got somebody who can help us create training, or you might just think that your members could get a unique discount on the training, please get in touch with us, and I'll give you the contact details in a minute because we'd love to hear from you. But I suppose in summary, some of the training is live now, but we're not doing our public launch until January. And there's a reason for that, and that's because we would like our OnFARM podcast listeners to get a unique deal. So if you go to the link that I will tell you about in a minute, you will get 50% off the training that is available at the moment until we launch in January. The moment that we launch in January, all of those prices will be going up to what will be the standard price. But if you go in and you pay for and download any of the current live training, you can get 50% off. So that's quite relevant, I think. And then keep listening to the podcast, because after the Academy launches, occasionally in the podcast, we will be dropping in a quick discount code. So we might say, this week for 1 week only, you've got 20% off the Facebook training on the OnFARM Academy with code pod, whatever it might be. So keep listening, because you'll get kind of discounts, like, I suppose, forevermore in a way. But the most important thing, I've outlined cost, I've outlined, the reasons why. I suppose the most important things to say now is how to get in touch, and crucially, how to find this training. So first of all, you can find us primarily on Facebook and Instagram. So Facebook, you just type in OnFARM Academy and it should come up. Our logo's got a cute little owl on it, so you'll know they're in the right place. And then Instagram is at @on_farm UK, which is actually, that's the podcast Instagram platform, but you can still get in touch with us through that. But the most important link probably is how to actually get into the courses and the academy in the first place. So all you need to type in to a Google search is training.onfarmacademy.com. And that will take you straight into our welcome page. You will need to set up your own account to be able to access the training. But once you've done that, it will be automatically discounted until we launch. So you don't need a code or anything. It's just automatically discounted until January. So training.onfarmacademy.com, and you can go in and you can access that now for the special price. And oh gosh, other than that, I'd just love anybody to please just kind of share and spread the word. And then I think we'll probably do another very brief episode, or even just a mention at the end of an episode in January, to let you know that we've launched, because we'll obviously have many more courses live by the time we launch. I think at the moment there are just 2 live because we haven't launched yet, but come January there'll be 5 or more, and then they'll keep growing as time goes on.
Training.onfarmacademy.com.
Yes.
Hope that come January we'll have a whole host of modules for them.
Well, definitely. So, and if there's anything, if you're sitting at home thinking, gosh, I'm missing the skills in X or Y area, or my team is missing skills in A or B area, get in touch with us. Come onto social media and get in touch and let us know what training you think should be out there, because I actually can't think of anything in the rural sector training-wise that we couldn't find somebody with expertise to help us create. So we will grow in a direction that you tell us you want us to grow. So I think that's really important too.
Good. Thank you very much, Anna.
You are very welcome. Thank you for having me on your podcast, Monty.
Hey, it's a pleasure. Always a pleasure, never a chore. It's me again next week. We are going to be recording at the Scottish Agri-Tourism Conference in Perth, and we're going to be bringing you an episode on that topic next week. So that's it from me, and bye for now.